My name's Mikey Rockwell, and I'm on a quest to make games. In this episode, I get lost in the woods trying to upgrade my art style. I grapple with a complex stream system and try to put the polish on my second prototype. In the last episode, I embarked on the second leg of my prototyping journey, making a game where you play as a wizard, growing and protecting a magical forest from goblins with the help of your trusty tree ants. While I'd given myself 14 days for the project, the game was in a good spot after 7 days. So instead of putting this prototype in the books and moving on, I got inspired by some beautiful art assets and bought the epic RPG Grassland 2.0 pack by Rafael Matos. Upon closer inspection though, the art was actually designed to be used in a tile map, which is something I probably should have been using from the start. Regardless, I just carried on by roughing out a building system so I could place these new water tiles in the game. Build. Cool. Okay, now for the tricky bit. Make some breakfast. This was my first of many attempts to solve the problem of how to calculate the edges of water and stream tiles. I was just trying to figure it out on my own, but the first trials were not going well. When I was first learning development and coding, I would let myself kind of do things the dumb way and allow my brain to catch up and realize why it was dumb, rather than just implementing something I had learned in a way that I didn't fully understand. Originally, I was terrified of doing the wrong thing when writing code, but as time went on, I came to realize that pulling things apart and putting them back together was just part of the process, and I began to enjoy breaking things and then remaking things. But in this case of dynamically calculating tile edges, my dumb approaches were not working out. So for the grass, instead of solving this problem, I just expanded the art so it would overlap the surrounding tiles, a cheap way to do the edges. I was feeling pretty disheartened at this point and I stopped recording, but kept on attempting to figure out a system for making these streams. Yesterday, I don't know how much of it recorded, it was a very frustrating day. The little yellow square is like this thing that walks through the scene, and see, it made a turn and it finds all the underlying sprites and adjusts them accordingly, and it's ridiculous code that writes basically a case for every, are we going up and turning right, are we going right and turning left, and it's pretty cool that it got working, but I just feel like it's like what happens when they meet. It was getting programmatically too chaotic. So yes, I'm building a library of stream sprites, so then I can build prefabs, so then I can spawn prefabs. Makes sense. The artwork for the water tiles included animations, and for some reason I have an aversion to the Unity animation system, so my hacky solution was to make a prefab for each tile with a script that would cycle through the animated sprites that I set in a data class. And with these base tiles, my new plan was to build stream sections, again as prefabs, that the stream could tack on to the end as it grew. Build that, and then add a stream section, then add. Keep adding streams forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. While this was a simpler solution, I was still wrestling with the end caps of the stream and implementing some pretty hacky solutions. Okay, so what you see here is the latest of stream technologies. So what we have done here are stream sections from a start point and an end point, and they can be spawned, tacked on to one another. These are all the east ones, the south ones, and now I'm making the west ones and the north ones. These red things are obstacles, and the green is where it's sampling. So it's sampling, it's trying a bunch of options and trying to get through, and it actually can't make it through that little crack there because, you know, it needs every one of these tiles to not be red. Grow, my friendly friends, grow. If you're an experienced programmer or developer, you may look at this problem and think that there must be a more elegant solution. And spoiler alert, there is, but at this point I wasn't aware of it. There is a certain satisfaction though in coming up with solutions to problems yourself and then trying them out. Even if they don't work, you feel like you're making some sort of progress. And this particular solution did work for what I was trying to do. However, I still didn't know how to deal with river intersections and more complicated things. But it was good enough, so I went ahead with implementing the system so that there could be multiple water sources managing their own streams. At this point, I'd spent around 2 full days working on streams and had already lost sight of the point of this whole project, so I decided to put a cap on the river for now. It was time to move on, so I started reworking the hydration system so it would be a bit more natural and more circular. To escape the editor for a while, I switched over to Blender to experiment with a workflow where you make a 3D model and then render it down to pixel art. I made a little placeholder character and rendered down the animation and then took it to Aseprite to create a sprite sheet. It was here it became clear one downside to purchasing art assets. It was going to be difficult to make new art match the art pack. My first attempt wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either.
I hate to say it, but it looks like the system you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
For some reason I didn't record day 10, but here's a clip from the future showing the work done on modeling and animating a new character in Blender. As you can see, there's all this detail, but then when you render a frame down, it becomes so small, and that's me rendering it sort of twice the size that it's going to end up. Turned out a lot of work had actually been done on day 10. The new player character was in the game and left behind a trail of flowers and grass tiles now had an animation as they grew. Trees could now be placed freely in the world as long as they weren't overlapping another feature, and there was some new tree art, and the mana balls were back. Instead of building upon the original game scene, I had opted to kind of start from scratch, importing pieces as I needed them in this new scene. So next I added in the spell system with a new non-grid based targeting and some effects to show which trees were being affected by osmosis as they grew up from saplings to adults. To add a bit of visual interest, each patch of grass would offset its brightness slightly to create more natural looking lawns. My wonderful, beautiful and talented partner had spent some time in her weekend modeling this rad 3D tree ant and added a Mixamo walk animation to it. To get it ready for rendering, I added a few texture paint touches. I go into camera view and I rendered that. What does it look like? Oh, it looks like a little tree dude. And this also involved an experiment of adding some leaves using the Blender hair system. I would really do anything to avoid drawing things by hand and realizing I didn't have the artistic talent. He's humongous. It seems a shame to have something so nice and then render it down to so few pixels. Doing a little more research into pixel art rendering in Blender, I tried using an add-on called Pixel Art Rendering. It was mainly just remapping the light values to create more stepped shading effects. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks really cool. If I put down some trees, it will visit the trees. Now that the rendering process was looking a little better, I could just move the camera around the tree ant in Blender and output the walk animation from different angles. The art pack came with a couple of orc characters that I would be using for the Goblin Raiders, so I tried my best to make the tree ant look like it kind of fit in the world. Walks up, walks down, walks left, walks right. So yeah, it's totally spiraled out from a prototype into a graphical prototype. Water sources are now one tile, and there's a couple of different water sources. There's this one that goes out in the diagonals. I just changed the whole growth algorithm of grass now, because it was kind of dumb. It used to reach out a certain distance and say that was fully hydrated, and then once it could only partially hydrate at a distance, and now it just hydrates based on distance. So the further a tile away is, the slower it hydrates, but it will eventually get there. Okay, so we're making mana. Oh yeah, let's get a little frame count. We've got 740 frames in the build. That's pretty good. The inventory is broken, basically. The way I built the inventory is pretty terrible, so it doesn't update. Now we got these new goblins coming in, and I can fire at them this time, so a couple of them I should be able to take care of. So I got 143 mana. I'll make an Ent. The Ent doesn't have an attack animation, and its attack sprite isn't showing up, so I feel like I haven't really improved that much since the original game. I mean, I fixed lots of little things. Oh yeah, we got some acorns here, buddy. We got some spells. Chat, they're gonna come kill our things. Ents away, Ents away. Oh, okay, we're at 30 frames. What is chugging us? Is it the orbs? It's the orbs, eh? It's just the orbs. Fill the region with rivers. Release the river. Release the river. Alright, I call that a screaming success. Having hundreds of mana orbs in the game, there was an issue where they were like looking for colliders, and it was kind of frustrating in Unity, to be honest. It's not very, I'm still not 100% clear on it, but basically like the layer that it's on, and then there are these overrides in the layer overrides. The mana pickups were interacting with each other. So they were all overlapping each other and creating contacts with each other the whole time. So I put them on their own layer, which is mana pickup, and they only talk to the mana layer, which probably should be called mana collector. Oh yeah, acorns seem to be working now. So they go back into the UI and we run out, and then we can't place them anymore. Okay, so my grand plan for what I want to do, somewhere on the map I want to add corrupt tiles that slowly spread, and sort of the aim of the mission of this first demo level would be to remove all corrupt squares from the map. By drawing on the hydration system, I was able to make the corruption spread pretty easily, and by making an overlay sprite, we could blend between a healthy and corrupt tile using a shader. Tiles are we adding? Oh, we're getting corruption growing exponential. Now that we had corruption, we needed a way to clear it. And my idea was to add a different type of tree, a cleansing tree, that would push back corruption in a radius around it. I got to work on adjusting the tree art and took this opportunity to redraw the acorn into a seed that would be different for the type of tree it was growing. You would now start the game with mana seeds and cleansing seeds, and you need to grow your groves to make more seeds to eventually push back the corruption. My first playtest against the corruption was a disaster. It spread too quickly, and the way it worked, things would not grow or hydrate or produce mana if they were corrupted. So I ran out of resources and the spreading corruption took over the map. After dialing back the corruption spread speed, I now had a new problem that when you had enough trees, you would just create so many seeds that it ruined the challenge. So I put a limit on how many seeds could be spawned into the scene at any one time. I was doing my usual game dev thing in this process of trying to learn new things by watching YouTube videos, and something jumped out at me when a developer I was listening to mentioned using marching squares to render their sprites in a Terraria-like fashion. Could this be the algorithm that would finally allow me to make my dream stream? So I did what any smart programmer would do. I watched the Coding Train episode on marching squares and did a little test implementation using another game engine with a little blue robot head for a logo. Bit of foreshadowing here. And managed to make fully dynamic streams with marching squares. All I had to do was remake the stream system again in Unity, but this time using marching squares. It was pretty tricky, to be honest, and it was difficult to wrap my head around, as the stream grid would operate in between the regular tiles and the fact that I didn't fully understand the marching squares algorithm, even though I had copied it and pasted it and read articles on it. But finally, after many hours of work... Okay, that's better. I think we might have done it. Yeah, look at this.
Wow, that's really cool.
Gizmos, boom, bang, boom.
Were you back in... Wait.
This is in the Unity.
Oh wow, you did it, babe.
We did it! Okay, I'll make us some dinner now. We mother flippin' did it. So I had gone a little over schedule with these last minute additions, but the new streams were so good that I had to add them fully into the game so they could be hooked into the building system. And with this done, I was calling it on the Nature Wizard Forest Protector game, and the last thing to do was record a little playtest and see if I could beat it. So many mana balls. And it seemed like I had finally fixed the frame rate issues with the mana balls. Whoa, look at them all. We're almost there. So with that, I had gone far enough down the rabbit hole, or far enough down the river, and pushed back the corruption to cleanse the land. In the next episode of DevQuest 3, having overdone it with the Nature Wizard prototype, I decided to change gears and work on an idea my partner had about herding cats. And to make life even more complicated, I decided to switch game engines and make my first 3D prototype. Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever.